Alright everyone, we're back with Teddy's historic content. Last week, we came with the greatest punchers in boxing history. We've been reading the comments. We saw a bunch asking for the greatest trainers in boxing history. So here it is, Teddy's top 10 greatest trainers in boxing history.
Alright, here we go. First thing first, we do these to elicit comment, thought, to provoke conversation, really, to get people talking, to get people in a good way, arguing, debating in a nice way, in a polite way. Kind of like the old days I remember back in the day when families would sit together. We don't have enough of that. Too many of these tablets. Let's get rid of the tablets. Let's do Teddy's historic list at the dinner table. All right, let's talk about them. Instead of having these tablets that the kids are like mesmerized into, and you got to beg them to get off the darn thing. I mean, I heard a great story from, I got to give him credit. You told me, your father-in-law, they want to cruise, and the kids, he's around his grandchildren like me. I love my grandchildren. He loves his grandchildren. He wants to spend time with them. He doesn't see them enough. So I get it. I feel it every day. And he's there, and I tell you, I take my hat, I salute him. And what did he do? They wouldn't get off it. They're on the cruise. He took the tablet, he threw it in the ocean. Yeah, that's right, Rich. He threw it in the ocean. I'm sure that he probably refunded the parents afterwards for the tablet, but he threw it in the freaking ocean. But the parents, you can learn something from that. Throw it in the ocean. If you don't have an ocean, throw it into somewhere else. All right? Throw it in a lake. Throw it in a pond. You don't have a pond? Throw it in a pool. You don't have a pool? Throw it in the garbage. But let the kids start to talk and be what they used to be, human, where we practice societal skills by communicating, by talking, by sharing at the dinner table. Let's do that. I remember back in the day that I'll just finish my thought. Was you would argue over baseball teams. Boxing and baseball were the biggest sports back in the day. And, who's better, the Mets, the Yankees, wherever you happen to be from the country. And you get into these arguments and these debates over that. Who's better? Marciano, Joe Louis. Who's better? Ali, Joe Frazier. Who's your guy? And it's good. It's good. It's conversation. It allows you to think and communicate and share. Again, it's better than those darn tablets. So before I get into my list of greatest trainers, right, of all time, I put a lot into it. I put a lot into all these lists. I want to give you your due, the fans out there. My son tells me about the comments, lots of comments, and just a huge amount of views for the last one, the greatest punch, and it's still growing, and that's why we're doing it, because you come out and you view it, you show that you have a hunger for it, you show that you want to see it. We're gonna keep doing it. You don't, then there's no sense in doing it, and you showed that in most of them, and especially the last one. I will say I can take critiquing, I can take constructive criticism. I probably missed the boat a little bit with not having The Rock. Anybody named The Rock should be probably on a list of greatest punchers. Rocky Marciano, only undefeated heavyweight champ of all time ever, 49-0, right? Tremendous puncher. I mean, when you have a punch that's named, that has its own name, like the Suzy Q, you should probably be on Teddy's list, maybe. And of course, the Hitman, the Motor City Hitman, Tommy Hearns. I'm good with my list. I'm always good with it. But I just want to tell you, I hear you. But isn't that what I'm talking about? Isn't that the greatness of these lists? That I can come back and say, yeah, okay, I give you that. Yeah, they could have been on there. But I chose to put these guys on. But you guys aren't wrong. You're right. You're not wrong, but this is my list. Again, it invokes good conversation, healthy debate. Here we go. You ready? Ready to do some more healthy debate? Okay, here we go. You ready, bud?
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. I do it my way. My way. I did it my Frank Sinatra. Oh, forget about it. What a great song. Right. And I'm going to keep doing my way until I ain't here no more. So my way. I'll first start with the guys that didn't make it. These could easily be on the list. I'll start with these two. In a couple years, they will be higher. They just need a little more longevity. And that is my criterion. I always explain to you. What is my criterion for a great trainer to be on this list? All right. You had to train good fighters. All right. But you had to have a consistency. You had to, first of all, have either taken a guy from the beginning and formed him into a great fighter, terrific fighter, or some place in their life when they needed help to improve, and you gave them that help and you improved them in their career. That is part of the criterion as a great trainer for me. And you have to have done it for a period of time. There has to be consistency, longevity. You've had to have had, you can't do what, you have to have done it for a period of time. Not only a period of fighters, I'm not even saying that, but a period of time where you've survived that test of time with different styles and different situations where you were able to help your protege get through those times, those situations. So these guys do that. And the two that I'm going to start with that didn't make the list, and they will be on the list in the coming years, there's no doubt about it, because they're the top guys right now. They just need a little more time. Remember that movie? You love that movie, Man on Fire. When Denzel Washington says to that the head of the Mexican police, the corrupt son of a gun, don't even get me started. I start thinking about judges now. But he says to him, he goes, "What do you want?" He goes, "I want one favor, one thing." What do you want? He goes, "Time." He goes, "I'm sorry. You got no time."
I wish you had more time.
I wish you had more time. Me, I got to go. Look, that is me, I got to go. What a cold son of a... Okay. Robert Garcia will be on that list. Doing just a great job the last several years with so many fighters that he has molded into champions. And Andy Lee, the two of them. To me, they're a tandem. They're a tandem right now. They're that close. He's also going to make his mark on he's making his mark on the sport, helping to improve fighters, bringing them to the next level. Both of these good men, and they're good men, who were also world champion fighters, will be the top trainers of the modern era. Let's not leave out Buddy McGirt, who was a tremendous fighter, great technical fighter, as a 2-division world champion, and has become a top trainer the last 15, 20 years. I remember Buddy when he had his first job. I remember when he had his first assignment. Just started, he had retired. He just started as a trainer. And when his first fight was on ESPN Friday Night Fights. I was calling the fights. And I remember saying right then, his first fight, he's going to be a good trainer. And sure enough, he's become a heck of a trainer. Also, I want to mention, I know one of your favorites, one of my favorite people, someone who was very close to our family. Again, didn't make the list, but I explain it. Lou Duva. I rate him as one of the great managers and motivators and leaders in the sport. He was a leader of his promotional company of Main Events. We should also not forget Gil Clancy, who trained the great welter and middleweight champion Emil Griffith, and was later one of the greatest boxing commentators for years with CBS television when boxing was still on free television, on the network TV. So without further ado, since I got that out of the way, let's do what we normally do. I got 10. They're all great. And I'll start with number 10. You're on this list. You know what? You're doing good. You're living life right. And you've been training fighters right if you're on this list. Freddie Roach, solid pro fighter that he was, became a top trainer, apprenticing under the great Eddie Futch and working with Futch's pupil at the time, Virgil Hill. Let me just see some here. Virgil Hill, the light heavyweight world champion, of course, later with the great Manny Pacquiao. That's where Freddie really obviously got made his bones and really got his reputation with one of the great fighters probably of all time. I mean, he's that talented. Manny Pacquiao is that talented with a combination of speed and power. You don't see that combination. And heart, everything else, character. Freddie Roach, number 10. Number 9. He's going to surprise some of you. When you hear the name, you're gonna think you missed something. You're gonna say, wait a minute, he became a trainer? He was a great fighter. He became a trainer? No. You got to listen close now. This is his uncle, Roger Mayweather, not Floyd Mayweather. Roger Mayweather. Yes, we know his nephew, the great Floyd Mayweather, but what I think we forget is that Roger was a good fighter who became a trainer and helped guide Floyd through his most formative years as a pro. Another trainer who just doesn't get his proper dues. But you know what? He does here. That's one of the things I take pride in this opportunity and privilege of doing these lists, Bud, is the opportunity to pay the dues to the ones that don't always get them, that deserve them, that have been kind of overlooked. I almost feel like that's my responsibility. And also, again, a privilege that I can be in position to do that. That was number 9. Okay, let's get to number 8. Number 8. Well, I hope you know this name. Every boxing fan should know this name. The great Angelo Dundee. One of the greatest cornermen and cutmen. See, I'm being very specific here. One of the greatest cornermen, and I think I'm educating some people that just didn't have the ability to know some of this. One of the greatest cornermen and cutmen of all time. Period. Bang. His brother Cus Dundee was the biggest promoter in Miami back in those days. So Angelo got the opportunity early on to work with some of the great fighters, and none greater than Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. He was so calm and shrewd in the midst of chaos that he may have saved the great Ali's career in the first Henry Cooper fight when Cooper dropped Ali at the end of the round, and Dundee, he brought him time when he pointed out to the ref that there was a small rip in one of the gloves, and the referee stopped the action to put on new gloves. And while he did that, obviously that took time. I don't know if it took 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, whatever it was. And by the time the new gloves were put on, Ali was fully recovered and completely revived. He went out and he stopped Cooper on the cuts. Dundee also cornered George Foreman in his comeback, and Dundee was a great ambassador to the sport. He really was. So there it is, number 8, the great Angelo Dundee. Okay, now number 7, Nacho Baristain, responsible for developing some of the great Mexican champions such as Rafael and Juan Marquez. Like Arcel, he was like a professor. You know, the ring was his classroom. uh, had a just had a real impact, especially with the great Mexican tradition of champions. Had a great impact on the sport. So Nacho Baristain, number 7. Let's go now to number 6. Again, this is gonna shock some people maybe a little bit, but it's okay to be shocked. It's okay. Jackie Blackburn. He was a great fighter in the early 1900s, and he's responsible for molding Joe Louis into one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heavyweight champion of all time. He's the one that taught Louis the art of having balance. Always be in a position. Watch Joe Louis. Go watch him. He was never out of position. He was always feet under him, always balanced, never reaching forward. You know, as the saying goes, never over his skis. And that's one of the reasons why he always had power in either hand, because he had his legs under him to deliver that power at all times. And that was the great Jackie Blackburn that taught him that taught him the art of having perfect balance at all times. So, Chappie, that's what Joe Louis and Jackie called each other, affectionately, Chappie. Chappie was, and now is, known, at least on my list, as one of the great trainers and teachers of all time. Because more people should just know how great some of these people were in their sport. And as I said, it has shocked some people because too many people don't know. They don't have the ability. They don't have the literature. They don't have the place to know this about guys like Jackie Blackburn. And now they do. And I want to make sure they do. So Chappie, you're right there. Number 6. All right, number 5. Eddie Futch. A gentleman he trained the great Joe Frazier after Yank Durham passed away. Yancey Durham had Joe Frazier, and then, when he left this earth, Eddie Futch took over. Tremendous job. He actually trained 3 of the heavyweights who beat the great Muhammad Ali. Kenny Norton, Larry Holmes, and of course Joe Frazier. And he won the world welterweight title with Don Jordan back in 1958, I believe was the date. Eddie Futch, a real gentleman, a terrific trainer, and just an asset to the sport, a real compliment to the sport of boxing. He made the sport look good. All right, that's number 5. Now we go with number 4. Again, I think that some of you are going to get educated maybe, but definitely hear some names that you probably weren't thinking you were going to hear, but they're only on here because I believe they deserve to be on here for what they've done. And again, they deserve the attention they haven't gotten maybe. Georgie Benton. He was a great fighter in his own right, and also a great trainer, blending offense and defense in his fighter's styles. He was essential in the professional development of the great stable of main event fighters, the top promotional company in the world at the time, with their incredible team of Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, Meldrick Taylor, and others. Georgie is very underrated, underappreciated as the great trainer he was, but he's not here. He gets his due. Georgie was great. And like I said, he was a great fighter too. So now he gets his due as a trainer. Number 3. Who is number 3? The great Emanuel Steward. He's not here with us anymore. But he is always here. How can you ever not think of Emanuel Steward when you watch boxing, when you look at the history of boxing, especially in the last, 30 years, 40 years, somewhere around that neighborhood where he made the Kronk Gym famous worldwide, developing great champions like Tommy Hearns, and later in their corners working and helping champions like Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko. He was a pioneer of the sport, bringing the Kronk, like I said, bringing the Kronk brand, the Kronk Gym, to the level of attention and recognition worldwide that he did. Everybody, I don't think there's anyone in boxing that's a fan that hasn't heard about the Kronk Gym. So he belongs, and he belongs at that level of that place that I just gave him as number 3. Number 2, I mentioned a word earlier of Baristain being like a professor. This guy looked more like your school teacher professor than a boxing trainer if you walked in the gym. The great Ray Arcel. He was a class act also. Trained over 20 world champions beginning when he was in his early 20s. Started very young, including greats such as Freddie Steele, Benny Leonard, and of course, the great Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. He was masterful as a trainer and a tactician. All right, that leaves number 1. All right, what do I got to say? What can I say? I'll start by this. Always being transparent. Always want to be as honest as possible. Yeah, I'm a little biased here. I put it right out there. I love the man. He's a big part of why I've had the success and the life I've had in boxing. Other than my father, nobody has really has influenced me more, probably in my life, than this man. And the way he's influenced the sport of boxing has been extraordinary. The only people I would say that influenced me right up there with my father has been my children, my family. But in boxing, nobody influenced me more than Cus D'Amato. He was my mentor for 7 years, and that's why I'm not shy to admit, I'm biased, but at the same time, I think I'm right, because exactly for the reason why I could say that maybe people would think I'm biased, because I was with him for 7 years of my life, and he was so important in my life, and still is. But it was because I was with him for 7 years that I got to see him up close of what this man was. These other men that I judge, I see them from a distance. I see their work. I know about them from either firsthand, experience, or through just the knowledge of the sport, reading about them, watching them on TV, watching them in corners, watching them with fighters. But this man, I did live with him for 7 years. I saw his greatness up close. And he was brilliant as both a technical teacher and a master psychologist. I don't think anybody blended the two better than Cus D'Amato. That's why he's number 1. I don't think anybody blended the psychology, which is 75% of the game, and the technical, the teaching, as well as he did. He was a master psychologist, which very few trainers can combine the two elements of the sport as he did. And he invented his own style, the peekaboo. I mean, how many guys out there invented their own style? The peekaboo, which was used to win world titles with Jose Torres, light heavyweight champion, also a silver medalist in the Olympics. But a guy that kind of gets forgotten. He was a hell of a fighter. He didn't have a long career, but he was a heck of a fighter. He used the peekaboo style to win the light heavyweight title. And, of course, Floyd Patterson, the first, at the time, the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, and the first heavyweight champ ever to lose the title and then regain it. Nobody had ever done that in the sport's history up until Floyd Patterson did it. And then, of course, Mike Tyson, who became the youngest, which Cus wanted. He wanted to have the young. He wanted to leave here with one final mark of leaving a great fighter, a mark of a great fighter, a great heavyweight fighter, and the youngest ever. A guy who would break the record, as I said, of his pupil, Floyd Patterson. His entire life was dedicated to the art of boxing. He once said to me, Teddy, I never got married because I was already married. I was like confused. I said, I didn't know that, I never got the pleasure of meeting the woman. No, it wasn't a woman. It was boxing. I was married to boxing. And it wouldn't be fair to get married to somebody when I knew I couldn't give them what they deserved to get from me, because I was given that already to the profession of boxing. And that wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right to join up with somebody for life when you couldn't be there the way that you're supposed to be there. So that's the reason he never got married. You talk about dedication, you talk about complete commitment to one thing. That was Cus D'Amato. What else can I say? He was great. I probably should use that word professor one last time. One last time, because the great Muhammad Ali called him a professor. He actually said to him, if you guys look it up, you'll see it's up there on Google. You'll see a clip with him and Ali was shadowboxing before the first Frazier fight, when Ali was coming back, after his exile from the sport. And they were shadowboxing, they were talking and everything. And Ali said, you don't even look like a boxing guy. You look like a professor. You look like a professor. So, and it was a great little tape, because while there was shadowboxing, Cus hit him. Cus hit him, and Ali touched his lip and said, the old man cut me. You cut me, old man. You cut me, old man. So, they loved each other. I love Cus. He'll always be number one for me. I hope you guys out there enjoy this list, as I think you've enjoyed the others that we've done, and you've shown it by your views, by obviously going out there and watching them, and your comments. I hope that, again, that this list is up to what you believe it should be up to your standards of who you believe belongs on the list. All I can tell you, it's who I believe should be on the list.
No, I loved it, but I thought it was a great list. I hope the viewers do, like you said, as well. And it's a special list to me. I enjoy all these lists, but this one hits home more. I'm the son of a coach. I'm the son of a trainer. And boxing is everything in this household and has always been. And there's one person that's been left off this list that needs to be on this list. And you're not going to like this, but it's the truth. And it's not biased because I am your son, but it's Teddy Atlas Jr. It's you. And I get emotional thinking about it, but you talked about your criteria: consistency, longevity, 50 years in the business. You have to have skins on the wall, 18 world champions. You talked about Cus. You talked about you got to be able to, for me, always, you got to be able to care about your fighter. Nobody cares more about their fighter than you. Nobody's more protective of their fighters. And even if that means ruining relationships with managers, with promoters, the fighter is always first. Your attention to detail, your technical prowess, combined with what maybe you learned from the great Cus D'Amato of understanding the psychology of boxing, but you added the trifecta to it. You added the motivational side. And in my opinion, nobody does it better. And there's so many instances of that. And I think that poster right there, Michael Moore, would agree with that when you sat on the stool versus Evander Holyfield.
That was a tough round to score. The question in my mind now is, can Moore win a championship this way? Does he have to show some passion and make something happen? Or can he just go along trying to win each round?
Do you want me to change places with you? Do you? Come on, Michael. Listen, this guy is finished. It comes a time in a man's life. But he makes a decision. He makes a decision to just live, survive, or he wants to win. You're doing just enough to keep him off you and hope he leaves you alone. You're lying to yourself because you're going to cry tomorrow. You're lying to yourself, and I'd lie to you if I let you get away with that. You're going to cry tomorrow because of that. Do you want to cry tomorrow? Huh? Then don't lie to yourself anymore. There's something wrong with this guy. Back him up and fight a full round. Okay. And after the right hook, throw the left uppercut. Inside, throw uppercuts after someone on top. Let's go.
Or Timothy Bradley with the fireman speech.
Look, the fire's coming. Are you ready for the fire? Look, we're firemen. Okay. We are firemen.
You got it, Coach.
The heat doesn't bother us. We live in the heat. We train in the heat.
Yeah, let's go.
It tells us that we're ready. We're at home. We're where we're supposed to be. Flames don't intimidate us. What do? We control the flame. We control them. We move the flame where we want to.
Let's go.
And then we extinguish them.
Let's go.
To
get that kind of urgency in a fight in which he's winning.
And we could go on. But that's not biased. That's the truth. I feel it to my toes. And you won't do that because you're too humble. But that's what I'm here for. So otherwise, amazing list. But nobody does it better. And with that being said, I just want to open it up for a little conversation because this is a really special piece. And you are a special trainer. You always say that a fighter has to have an identity. You got to know who you are. And I feel like we just touched on that a lot with trainers and having identities, right? With what the strengths were of you and Cus D'Amato. I think of, Freddie Roach. I think aggression. I think of offense. We talked about Cus, peekaboo style. Did Benton invent the Philly shell? Eddie Futch, maybe because of Joe Frazier, gets some credit for the bob and weave. But do you think that is something? I know you got to adjust to the fighter you have. If you got a tall fighter, he should be using his assets and his advantages, fight on the outside. If you're a short arm fighter, a smaller guy, you should fight on the inside. But do you think that a trainer, in a certain way, to become special, has to have a certain identity? Because even the young or more modern fighters you touched on, trainers, I should say, like a Robert Garcia, I do feel like there's an identity there. His guys come forward and they pressure. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
You have to listen. You've been a great, really. You throw all this praise at me. I'm going to throw some back at you, and thank you. You made a list, by the way. We might not be doing that list right now, but you made a list too. Greatest sons of all time. You're on that list, okay? You've been a top scout and director of scouting in the NFL for like 16 years. And a big part of your talent, it has to be your talent, your ability, is to obviously evaluate talent, but to see things that you don't always see on film. To understand what goes beyond the obvious, to understand something about the player, or in my case, the fighter's character. You got to be. Before I would train a fighter, I would ask. I wanted to know, and Cus always told me this too. I want to know something about their background. Like did they have discipline in their background? Did they ever get tested as a kid in a way where their character was tested? Because at the end of the day, you're banking on their character. Yeah, their talent, their speed, their power, their footwork, all that. But you're going to have a lot to do with forming that. Yeah, the genetics have to be there. The good genes have to be there. All of that. But it's not always the guys that win world titles that have the best genetics. It's sometimes just the guys that have the best character, that have good enough genetics. And the genetics they don't have, they're kind of supplemented with the teaching, with you teaching them, with you giving them the just giving them the fundamentals that they need to use whatever talent they have to the best of their ability. That's your job. But to also, again, to recognize before you get involved, is there a chance he's got character in different areas? In different areas, like has he faced things in his life? Has he? I remember one time there was a fighter, and the reason why I wound up saying yes to training him was that both his parents died young, and he basically had to quit school to raise his siblings, his young siblings. And just when I found out that story, I was like, oh, I can't say no to a guy like this. He has already shown the ability, the discipline, the fortitude, the selflessness, the ability to think of somebody more than himself. And when you have that ability, you've already shown you have a strength. Yeah, I don't mean a physical strength. I don't mean a physical endurance. I mean a real definition of real strength. That you can make choices in your life that are uncomfortable. That's what we're looking for. People that can make choices when it's hard to make those choices. So it was always part of being a scout. Like I always was impressed the way you would tell me, yeah, Dad, on film he didn't show up as good as this guy, and they're probably going to get drafted ahead. But at the end of the day, I think this guy's going to be in the NFL. I think he's going to be in there when the other guys ain't in the NFL no more. To be honest with you, because of what doesn't show up on film, what I've seen when I watch them play in person, when I watch the way he behaves, the way under certain situations, and instincts, all those things. I remember one time you would tell me, the guy wasn't the fastest, the guy wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the best in the weight room, but every time you put film on, whenever there was a loose ball, he was on it. And you were like, he might be the slowest guy on the field. How is he always around the ball? And you answered yourself. Because I threw it at you. I said, well, how's he always around the ball? And you said, because he's intuitive, because he's got good instincts, because he anticipates what's going to happen before it happens. So part of that is he's calm in an uncalm environment. When everybody else is seeing chaos, he's seeing what has to be seen. So all of those things are important. But one of the most important is what you started this conversation with. You have to see the identity for your fighter. You have to be able to say, wait a minute, this guy's acting like Muhammad Ali, when really he should be acting maybe a little bit more like Jake LaMotta. He ain't going to be Ali. Or that you have to be able to match up their skills with the style that best suits them to deliver those skills. On a consistent manner. You have to know what you got. And you have to help the fighter know what he is. And again, you just have, and to do that, you have to take inventory of many areas of the fighter. And the most important area is the area of character, his background. You've heard me say it a million times when I was doing all that broadcasting on ESPN, where I say, look, some people would rather see the guy do this. He moves too much. He comes forward too much. He does this too much. But I always say you can't get around his temperament. If that's his temperament, that's what he's going to do. So you got to recognize that in his character. I'm not going to force a guy to be outside his temperament. There are trainers who will say, no, I want this guy to be aggressive. I want him to be there. Why? Well, why? One, they probably favor that style. They like that style. They know that style can make money, right? That style gets on TV faster, right? Yeah. But if that ain't his makeup, if that ain't his temperament, if that ain't his core, if that's not his calling, If that's not what he believes, then you're doing him wrong by letting him have that identity. You have to get him the right identity. So you were on the mark, bud. You're right on the mark. I mean, that is the right question. That's the $1 million question. There's a lot of parts to being a good trainer, but probably none more important than understanding what the identity should be for that fighter with what he has and doesn't have.
No, well said. And as you touch on me as a scout, I credit a lot of that to my upbringing and learning and being around you, because it's not just about, as you always say, the neon talents. We could see who the fastest is, who the longest is, who the strongest is, but it's the other talents that you always touch on, and the consistency and reliability and this and this. And I think that helped me and served me as it helps and serves trainers in boxing. So I thought this was obviously a great piece, one that hit very close to home. I hope the viewers feel the same. And I just want to say real quick before we do sign off, Bud, two trainers that touched me and helped me in my upbringing. The late Bob Jackson, in my teenage years, helped me out. Saw him at Gleason's gym. He trained heavyweight champion Oleg Moskiev. And when I was in college up in Boston, Norman Stone, I should say, called Stoney. He trained a heavyweight champion as well, John Ruiz. So just two guys that were great to me. They made an impact and had some champions and success of their own.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that, well, I'm not surprised with you. You never forget the people that were there for you, or were there for us. That shouldn't be forgotten.
You definitely can't forget Stoney. He was, besides a great man, quality. A great character to be around.
You can't forget Stoney. I mean, Stoney was one of the... he's a good guy. He was one of the great characters of the sport, and a dedicated guy, a guy that dedicated his life to making John Ruiz a heavyweight champ. I mean, really, truly dedicated his life to doing that, and gave up parts of his life to do it. You know, mortgaged his house, did the whole thing to support him. So yeah, a guy that puts that into anything should be recognized.
Absolutely. I hope everybody out there enjoyed this one. We're listening, guys. Please let us know. Leave some comments. Let us know next week what should be Teddy's next historic content list. As always, thank you again. We'll see you next week.